Welcome to the Tomb of Horrors.
All right, so we don't have like a phrase because I don't know how intrepid our adventurers are, but when last we left
We're a bizarre combination of timid and reckless.
Yeah.
Gaggle
of weirdos.
Anyway, they
Yeah.
our peoples, they had found two fake entrances to the Tomb of Horrors and had hopefully found the real entrance, and only two people had died so far. No, wait, yeah, two.
Yep. One of them died before we actually got to the tomb.
One, yeah.
And then
Sat on an eyeball.
Yeah. And then the other one, rocks fell, and everyone that was her died.
Yeah.
So.
And one of them became punny.
Yes, and
we don't know what happened to the other one.
Yeah, and thinking about it, she hasn't really been. It's not a very. I think she's kind of been forgetting to do it, and it's also just not as in your face as the punning one. So
she has been dropping hints on it. I can tell you what my character thinks. Well, I don't know if my character's really paid a whole lot of attention either, but she mentioned we smelled alcohol on her.
Oh, you're thinking of the. You're thinking of some. I'm talking about to Shannon's character.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. She got a quirk.
She got a quirk and she hasn't played it at all. So, I mean, it is more subtle than them, but still, I think she's kind of forgotten about it.
Who were the characters again?
The characters are Pulmonic the wizard who organized this whole thing, and there's Theophania, the 7-foot-tall rogue,
right?
And Jean-Claude, I can't remember his last name.
No, not Van Damme.
No, yeah. He's the guy who's like the famous adventurer and is obsessed with himself. There's Otto Wilhelm, the strongman, and Farshim, the birdman, who is really grumpy and is there for revenge. I think that's the one.
The dark and brooding rager.
Yes. Yeah. I've found my link to your campaign, so I can now have everybody open except Robin's character, because.
It doesn't show in a public link. It's just under unassigned at the bottom, unless you can't see it because you're not a member. But anyway. I can't
see it because I'm not a member.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so this hallway is very colorful. The walls are plastered and they're covered with all kinds of scenes of fancy things, including kine, which I had to look up is apparently an archaic word for cows. Thanks to Gary Gygax for that. But it's really interesting reading these descriptions and knowing that they were written by Gary Gygax. But anyway, there's all these scenes. There's like outdoor scenes. There's a bunch of like animal-headed creatures like dog-headed and I don't remember the other ones, but
any crow-headed ones where Eric Cocker guy was like.
It didn't mention that, so I didn't think of it. But and then there's also scenes of like indoor scenes. There's like a torture chamber and a library and a bunch of other things. I don't remember without looking it up. And on the floor, it's tiled, and there's a path of red tiles going like snaking around the room. So. And near the entrance, as the description says, I didn't even come up with this. This is original Gary Gygax humor. The most outstanding feature of this room is actually outstanding. There's a box sticking out from the wall being held by two paintings of dog-headed guys. And I had told everyone, like, hey, you guys are immortal. You don't necessarily know you're getting these quirks, so you should just, go in and explore and don't worry about it. And it also makes it more interesting because otherwise, last time everyone kind of waited for the rogue to do everything, and which is kind of optimal, but also not that fun for everyone. So this time I was like, yeah, just go, right? And so Jean-Claude strode in there to check out the box right away, and was like, yeah, I just opened the box. And luckily, the perception check on that was so easy that even without trying, he noticed that it has a catch that you pull on the top to open the bottom, and there's a really clear poison needle trap. Like there's a needle sticking like 2 inches out of the wall. It's super obvious. And so he noticed it even without trying. And so he just used his sword to open it. And the bottom of the box flips open, and he reaches inside, and
there's a lever inside.
Inside there is a lever,
box.
And so he pulls the lever, and it triggers a trap door that he's standing on, and he falls 30 feet onto poison spikes.
Yeah. Pulmonic had Featherfall, so Pulmonic cast Featherfall, but there's still poison spikes at the bottom.
Yeah, so I had
Uh,
I had him make an acrobatics check to see if he could like feather fall to avoid the poison spikes, which he didn't do, and then he got hurt by the poison spikes and failed his poison save and died anyway. So
Yep. So Jean-Claude gently wafted down onto the poison spikes and pricked his finger and died.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe last week I said I expect 2 people to die in this hallway.
Ha ha! Joke's on you. Only one.
Oh.
I don't know. You might be forgetting something, but we'll get back to that.
Oh, if you count at the very end of the hallway. Then
Yes.
Yes, that happens. Okay, I was sort of imagining that as like a little chamber at the end, but I guess it's part of the hallway. All right. There were 2 then. You were right, Nico.
So he returns after a few minutes, and this is when people started noticing that there was like a smell of alcohol in the air. But
I guess alcohol is a common consumable, so that must mean that Jean-Claude has as much as he needs at any given time.
yeah, I mean, this kind of came out over the course of the adventure, but it's sort of hard to do. But like Robin kept sending like Slack messages to people that like they noticed him like taking a sip from a hip flask and smelling of alcohol and whatnot. So yeah, but anyway, I think the next thing that happened was
Well, we walked around the pit trap because it didn't cover the entire hallway.
covered
It was,
half. Yeah, but
and so the next thing along, there was on the mural on the side, there was a mural of a door. It was a door that was painted onto the wall.
the torture chamber, and it had like a beast like holding the bars painted on there.
And so Otto was like, well, I have forced open 2 false doors so far in this adventure. Let's go for third time the charm. I'm going to open this door that isn't real. And I'm going to do it the Otto way. So I go and now I can't remember.
You walked up to it and pit trap.
Yeah.
There was a pit trap in front of the door.
Yeah. So I feather fall down. And as I'm feather falling down, I'm like, I have so much rope in my inventory. Why wasn't I tied off to someone? I'm cleverer than this. But then I touched the spikes. But I think I dodged the spikes this time. I took like a pittance of hit point damage and no poison.
Yeah, you didn't fully dodge the spikes, but you made the con save against poison.
Yeah,
was the big thing.
because I'm super constitution-y. I'm a barbarian. So yeah, I climbed back out of the pit trap.
With his 300-pound chest on his back, just the whole party had to like hold him so that they could. Well, I guess they could probably have tied it off too. But anyway.
Yeah. I don't know if we explicitly mentioned it last tale telling. Even though we're not tracking encumbrance and we didn't have to actually list all the common items we were bringing with us. Right. I did anyway, because my carrying capacity is almost 900 pounds. I figured let's have fun with this.
Yeah.
So I literally have a huge wooden chest strapped to my back where I'm carrying 300 pounds of gear. It's great. So anyway, yeah, I just hoisted myself out of there, and we built, since the painted on door is now directly over the pit trap, we built a scaffold out of my many 2-foot poles and those doors that I'd ripped out of their frames earlier in the adventures. So
the fake doors for the fake entrances, they used them as a platform.
Yeah.
New floor.
Yeah, so I could go and stand in front of this painted on door, and I used my portable ram, and I think Jean-Claude helped, and we opened the false door. Yeah, there was in fact a door behind it.
Yeah, it was.
And I rolled so high on my strength check. There was a door and a short corridor and another door beyond that. And I rolled so high on the strength check that John adjudicated that the door was blown out of its hinges and rammed into the far door and opened that one too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the door was like a plaster. There was plaster covering the door. So the idea is like you pull the plaster back, but he just like bashed it. The plaster exploded. The door went flying. The next door went flying into the next room.
Yep.
So
take that, dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very surprised over the course of this adventure just how effective my smash everything approach is working. I wasn't expecting it to.
I mean, this time you don't have a spade this time. You just have a barbell, but still.
Yeah. And a portable ram and dual sledgehammers, and yeah, I've got all sorts of stuff. Anyway, yeah. So, boom. Now there's a hallway, a short hallway to a room beyond.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they head in there. Theophania takes the front because she's the rogue. They come into the room, and it's pretty much empty. There are 3 doors leaving it on the south kind of wall. It's actually like it's like
No, it wasn't empty. There was a thing here.
oh yeah, no, I know, but I was gonna.
Oh,
there's like no furniture or anything.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay. that's
door
what I
is
think.
like, or the room is like, you imagine a rectangle, but the hallway they were coming in, like there's kind of more hallway after the door. So it's sort of like a rectangle with a little jiggy sticking out of it. In the bottom part of the rectangle, there are 3 doors, 2 to the south, which is like to the left, and 1 in like to the east,
Around
like
the
the way they
corner
came
from
from,
there,
kind of around
yeah.
the corner. But in this room is a statue of a 4-armed gargoyle, which as soon as they enter, comes to life and attacks, which everyone was very excited for, especially Robin, because she was like, I want to have some combat, not all these trap. I think she didn't quite understand what
Tomb of Horrors was.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they fought the gargoyle.
It did a little damage to us. I don't think any of us died.
No one died. A few people got close, but there was, I mean, this is our first combat for most of the players in 5th edition, so there was a little bit of like figuring out how stuff worked and whatever. And my first combat running like Theater of the Mind, because we didn't have a grid or anything. I mean, luckily it was a tiny room, so it made it really easy to do. Theophania slipped behind it, and that was kind of nice because I was able to use some 5th edition-y like improvised ability roll-offs to like determine that she could do that, and she shot it, and then Jean-Claude came up and bashed off 2 of its arms, which turned to stone and smashed on the floor, and then Otto came up with his and they were just like trading places in the hallway, so they got an attack of opportunity, and the next guy kind of came up because it was blocking the entrance basically, right? And he came up with his maul, which I don't know if you want to describe it.
It's a barbell.
Yeah, his maul is a giant barbell, which he bashed the gargoyle's wing off, and then Farshim shot it, I think, for the last bit of damage that broke it, and it crashed to the floor as a pile of stone. And they immediately went over to loot it, to see if there's anything on it, and they found this golden collar with blue gems, which the gems are worth, it's like 10 gems worth 100 gold each, which is like nothing for their level. It's like a pitiful treasure.
We're not 1,000 gold piece adventurers.
But Holmanek cast detect magic and found there was like a faint illusion magic coming from it, and he cast identify. He cast identify on it because he wanted to know if it was magical. And I was like, okay, this isn't actually a magic item per se, but I kind of just had it be like, okay, there's some kind of message like on this thing or in this thing or something written in code that is a magical code that you need comprehend languages to read, but you don't know where it is because you haven't found it yet. I thought that was a reasonable way to, not have him totally blow his identify spell. So with that, then they did a thorough search of it, and there was a hidden compartment with a little scrap of parchment inside of it with this note written in weird runes. The only thing that was discernible was a -A at the end. Brian and I both discovered that we didn't know how to say Asurak's name properly. Yeah. I've always called him Asarak, and you called him
Asursarak.
Asursarak, but it's Asurak. Anyway.
What?
Yeah, read it. It's Asurak. It's not Asarak.
Or Asursarak.
Brian said it differently than me, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember having a conversation about how I said it wrong, and then I looked it up, and Brian was wrong too. So, anyway.
Only ever heard it in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did comprehend language on it.
Right, he didn't actually have comprehend languages, but then I was like, well, it's about time for you guys to get one of your like mid-session level ups because they're slowly getting back to their old strength, and it's a perfect time. He's like, wait, I'm pretty sure I know how to do comprehend languages, and then bing, they leveled up to level 4, and he knew how to do comprehend languages, so he cast comprehend languages, and the note, there was this little note. Let me just actually read it off. Second. Said, look low and high for gold, to hear a tale untold. Take the archway at the end, and on your way you'll wend.
I immediately advised we should either ignore this or do the opposite of whatever it's suggesting. Because if I was building a death trap dungeon, I would put a note in it that explained exactly how to walk your deaths. Because I want
Well,
everyone
and
to die.
there was quite a bit of debate because there was a couple people that are like, yeah, we can't trust anything from this dungeon because you remember that path of red tiles that led through the hallway? So they've hit 2 pit traps in there so far, and both were on the path. And they're like, okay, well, obviously the path is just leading us to our doom, so we should not do anything. And then when they got this note, they're like, awesome, there's a note. We should do exactly what it says. Now we know what to do. But then some people were like, no, we can't do and so there's great debate about it, but they still are trying to figure out what it means anyway. So
Yeah, we can't do the opposite of it until we figure out what it's trying to tell us to do in the first place.
yeah. So yeah, they basically couldn't. They went back to the hallway and looked at it, and they couldn't immediately see gold. So they were like, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, now, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's all I had to say about that.
All right. Well, now there's these 3 doors in this room that we have to examine.
2 to the south and 1 to the east.
And so we pick one of the south ones, I think basically at random. And Theophania checks it for traps. There don't seem to be traps. And so I think Otto decides, all right, I'm going to use my door solution on it. And so he rams it. I don't know. Yeah. I don't remember if we checked whether it was locked or anything.
No, you didn't. It wasn't locked, but
I didn't check it was locked. It was just kablamo. It worked really great last time, so if it worked once, I have a hammer fix. I'm just gonna keep using it.
Now,
for you, sir.
I know Jean-Claude was I think Jean-Claude was the first to go in the room, though.
Yeah. I remember that.
He went into the room and
describe the room. It's just a little cubby. It's I smashed down the door, and there's like it's not even a 10-foot by 10-foot room. It's just a super stubby little corridor, and then there's another door.
Yeah, just a square, like 7 foot by 7 foot, maybe. I don't know. Not quite.
And I didn't hit this door hard enough to smash the subsequent door as well. So now there's another door.
And Jean-Claude goes in there, and he's doing a very thorough examination of the floor for pit traps and stuff. And as he's doing that, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of bolts shoot from the ceiling, and one thunks into him. It doesn't kill him, but it does damage. And then I think he went to examine the ceiling because of that, and saw that there was a bunch of holes in the ceiling, but the mechanisms for them are like hidden behind the ceiling. And then another round of bolts came and shot him. And so he ran out of the room. And then there was kind of a little strategy session of what to do next.
Polmanik came up with a magical solution. He was able to animate water, and so he made a whole lot of water flow up into the holes in the ceiling, and then he froze it.
Yeah.
So
and the bolts were hitting it and cracking the ice, so it wasn't going to last forever, but it was lasting for now. So everyone decided they better move quickly. So Otto and Jean-Claude go running through the room with the ram and bash the next door off. Yep. And it leads to a tiny room with only one door, this time going east. So there was a south door, a tiny room, south door, tiny room, east door. Right. And they get into this room.
Holes in the ceiling of this one too. So we know the drill at this point.
Everyone runs through because they want to run through before the ice goes, except for Theophania, who's like, this is stupid. I'm staying back here, and starts examining some of the other doors.
Yeah.
And they all run into the next room, and there's another door to the east, so they start bashing that down. Meanwhile, they're all getting shot by bolts from the ceiling. Didn't
Polmanik also stay out in the hallway?
No, he went with you guys.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Because he wanted to go. Only Theophania thought it was stupid to go until we knew what was going through. So they bashed down this other door to the east, and it leads to a tiny room with a single door to the north.
And on the map, we can now see this is curving back towards one of the other doors in the thing. But we're doing this. It's been working great. We're getting riddled with bolts, but these doors have been falling to our assaults one after the other. So we charge in.
And bash that door off. And at the same time, Theophania is talking about how she's going to open this other door. So she checks it for traps, and she opens it, and she's just opened it. And then Otto crits on this door, and it goes flying off its hinges and bashes the door that Theophania has just opened from the other side and bashes it into her and does massive damage to her.
So she opens the door and then immediately gets a face full of other door rocketing through because I had just smashed through it.
Yeah.
So who was the foolish one then? Who was the foolish one?
And they come running through. get
Yeah.
riddled with more bolts. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's a
And are back where they started. And Theophania, fortunately, no one died. There was a few people pretty low on hit points by the end of that, including Theophania, who was had like 2 or something, but
Yeah.
no one actually died. Oh,
Would have been
Theophania was also
hilarious.
lower on hit points than she would have been because I mentioned, hey, common items, potions of healing are common items. You can have as many of them as you want. You're a little wounded after the gargoyle fight. Is anyone going to take them? And Theophania's like, okay, I will. And she drinks it, and it's like there's some and I was like, oh, there's some curse on this dungeon. Instead of healing you, it hurts you by the same amount. And so that was my sort of trick to, you can have as many common items as you want, but unfortunately not healing potions. Which is fine because the easiest way to heal is to die. So
Did you see the healing potion mimic?
no.
Oh, somebody posted that. I can't remember who, but it was like basically like you drink a healing potion, you put like alien embryos in your belly.
It's a
And
chest burster.
Yeah.
So yeah, we solved those doors. That was great.
Those pointless doors.
Oh yeah, they're all dead now. We've defeated everything so far.
Yeah.
But there's a
Single combat.
Oh yeah, there's a remaining door in this room now. So we smash it.
Smash it, and there's the same thing. It's the same tiny room, but there's no exits at all. And they're just like, okay, screw it, we're leaving. They go back, so that was completely pointless. They just got shot with bolts. And they go back to...
We got 1,000 gold piece collar thing.
And a mysterious message.
And the mysterious message that we can't figure out, and if we figure it out, we might want to do the opposite of what it says anyway, or ignore it completely.
So they get...
Progress.
They return to the hallway, and they're looking for gold, but they don't see gold, because look high and low for gold. And I asked them, okay, are you going to follow the path or go off the path? And so far... and the person who wants to go ahead is Jean-Claude because he wants to examine the pictures of the library. And so far, the pit traps have been on the path, so they're like, okay. But then he decides to follow the path anyway because I don't know why. So he follows the path, and it winds to the east, and he starts looking at the picture of the library. He examines it closely, pulls some of the plaster back. There's no hidden door there or anything. They proceed down the hallway, still sticking to the path.
I think this is a bad idea, but I'm also starting to think maybe it's a double bluff. Put 2 traps on the path so that everyone's like, oh, avoid the path from now on, and then put all the traps off the path.
Yeah.
But
actually, this is the point where Farshim is like, sorry, go ahead.
I don't think that Jean-Claude and the others were actually thinking about this stuff. So I think they were just like, we'll just follow the path. It turns out to be the clever approach, just randomly. So whatever.
Yeah.
I'm following behind them. So they're my timber rogues.
You do have a flying character.
Yeah,
Yep.
So that's when Farshim decided to fly down to the end of the hallway. So he flies down to the end of the hallway, which actually doesn't help anyone know if there's any more
we don't
pit
know where
traps.
the pits are.
But he gets down to the end, and there's 2 things. To the left is this misty archway full of mist, and as he gets close, there's 2 stones in the bottom, left and right, start glowing certain colors.
Yellow and orange were at the bottom.
Yellow,
Sky
and then
blue was on the top.
Blue is in the top. And then there's also a big green devil face with a gaping black mouth. And
of course, this is where my memories triggered, and I had to keep my mouth shut while everyone was trying to figure out that devil face.
The green devil mouth is the most iconic piece of this dungeon, and it's also like that picture is very iconic too. It's been you used as a classic D&D picture. And
I'll paste them.
So
anyway,
I was quiet while everyone figured out what to do.
They're trying to figure out what to do with the archway. The rest of them come, and like, it's funny. So they followed to where Jean-Claude was, and then they decided to follow the path, and then I forget who decided to go off the path. And so they go off the path.
Me.
And they go, and then they have to cross the path one more time, and then they get to the end. And actually, just by the players don't know this, but there's like so many more pit traps, and just by sheer coincidence, they avoided them all. Because there was more on the path, there was more off the path. Basically, the path had no significance at all, but they just happened to avoid them all. So they were pretty fortunate in that regard. And they all get to the end, and they're looking at these things, and they shoot an arrow into the
misty
archway, and they don't hear it hit anything on the other side or anything. They tie a stone to a rope and throw it through the misty archway and pull it back, and
I think the rope was just cut off.
the rope was like cut off, and they're debating what to do. But they try pressing different buttons on the misty archway, and nothing seems to happen.
Yeah, those glowing stones, the 3 on the arch there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Pulmanek, he sticks a 10-foot pole into the misty archway. Nothing happens. And then he sticks a 10-foot pole into the green devil mouth. And this is the part where I had to adjudicate what happens, because it's actually very vague, the description.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm happy saying here, because we all know, of course, inside the green devil mouth is a sphere of annihilation, or more accurately, as it says, an effect similar to a sphere of annihilation, which is interesting. The way I imagined it is if it's right on the right, like in the very beginning of the mouth, then there's going to be no subtlety. Everyone who goes in there is just you're going to see them die because you disappear when you touch it, right?
Yeah.
So what I was imagining is there's actually like a darkness effect. You crawl in there for a bit and then you get annihilated, so you can't tell.
Yeah, I was thinking like I would run it where like the mouth actually like has like you can see into it, and then down the gullet is dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
imagine like you have to ride the
that's more or less. I mean, that's more or less because I was just sort of like there's like a tunnel you have to crawl into, and I'm imagining it's dark as soon as you go in that tunnel, and you don't get annihilated until you're like 5 feet in, right?
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of, there have been tales other parties have had where like entire party funneled their way into this thing and they all died.
Yeah.
And it's always struck me that like if this is like a sphere of annihilation, what would happen is as you start crawling in, your head would be annihilated and your body would just go flump.
Yeah.
And then your party would pull your body out and be like, oh, he doesn't have a head anymore. This is not Or you know, you'd be reaching ahead of yourself and your arm would get disintegrated. Yeah, and then you're like, oh, I don't have an arm anymore. I can't feel a head anymore.
So the way I looked up what sphere of annihilation does in 5th edition or whatever, and I was like, okay, as soon as you touch it, you cease to exist. So then I was like, okay, if you touch it with your weapon, you should cease to exist. So if you touch it with a 10-foot pole, I think you should cease to exist. And so he stuck the 10-foot pole down in there, and that was actually in a way a good way of finding it out, because they saw it was far enough in that they saw him cease to exist. So he stuck it in, and he just turned film negative and disappeared.
Right.
And everyone's like, huh, I guess that was bad.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a teleport to the next part of the dungeon.
That was actually the thing, because like 2 or 3 campaigns ago, John had a dungeon we were in where there was a teleport trap that was illusioned up to look like a disintegration trap. And our party rogue stepped into it and got teleported way far away. And the rest of us were like, oh no, she's dead. And we mourned her and everything. And the player was like, I'm right here. And it's like, no, we don't know. We think you're dead. It was a convincing illusion. So we mourn you and we move deeper into the dungeon. So we spent like 2 or 3 sessions split up. But yeah, this one was a disintegrate trap.
Yeah,
so,
they did wait. They're like, well, we'll just wait 5 minutes, and if he comes back, then we know he died.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, then we know he was teleported. So
I think, was it Farseem couldn't wait 5 minutes?
Yeah, he didn't want to wait 5 minutes, so he was like, screw it, I'm going through the misty archway. And so
5 minutes.
So he goes through the misty archway.
At least he said, screw it, I'm going. Not. At least he said, I'm going through the misty archway instead of through the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a teleport all along. I know it.
Yeah.
He goes through the misty archway, and then they wait for him to come back through, and he doesn't come back through. And then they wait for
Pulmanek reappears.
Pulmanek to come, and he comes back. And then they wait to make sure that since 5 minutes since Farseem went through the misty archway, and he never comes back. So they know that he didn't die from going through the misty archway.
Yeah.
So they press a bunch of random buttons on those colorful stones. They press them in some random order, and then they tie themselves together and all walk through the misty archway. And they all walk through, and everyone's tied together. They were already tied together, except Pulmanek never retied himself because. And so they go through this misty archway, and they find themselves in this small, miserable, this small, miserable room with no exits, and there are 3 levers on the wall. And Farseem is there, and he hasn't made any progress at all. So it's just basically an empty room with 3 levers and no way to get out. And Yep. So
That's okay. There's levers. We will
Yeah.
work the levers.
So they try a bunch of things, but ultimately they try. 3 of them have to do it at once. They push all the levers up at the same time. When this happens, a trapdoor in the ceiling opens and dumps some hot coals on the people who weren't by the levers. And there's no one dies from that, but no one likes it either. And they see
I think it was it Theophania who wasn't near the levers?
Theophania and Pulmonic. They weren't pulling on the
Yeah.
levers, so they both got
Yeah.
some hot coals on them.
For a rogue, she likes to hang back and let the rest of us mess with the traps.
Yeah.
She's cautious. Anyway,
Farshim flew up to that little area where the coals came from and kind of did the touch the walls thing to hold himself in there and did a visual inspection, but didn't find anything. So he comes down, and so they're like, okay, well, we'll try the other way. So they all push the levers at the same time down. And the floor opens up into a pit trap that's 100 feet deep to poison spikes. Now, everyone is tied onto each other except for Pulmonic, and Otto and Jean-Claude Otto and Farshim successfully grab onto the levers that they were just pulling and hold on to them. So most of the party just gets caught on the end of the rope, except for Pulmonic, who feather falls himself and floats down, fails to avoid the spikes, gets spiked, but makes his con save, so he lives. And they have a lot of rope, so they have enough rope to get down to 100 feet, and they pull.
Well, as Brian discovered with his own experiments in 50 feet of rope.
Yeah.
It does not require much room.
They'd made sure to bring a ton of rope, so it was only kind of a minor inconvenience, but they pull him out of this 100-foot pit and they climb up, and Theophania has some pitons, so they piton next to the levers so they can be not holding on to the levers because there's nothing to hold on to anymore, right? They all get into this position and then push the levers up again, and that closes the floor and reopens the ceiling, but there aren't any coals in there this time. And they're like, okay, what do we do now? Now, they knew that Farshim had rolled really poorly when he searched that cubicle above, so I don't know, and they were kind of desperate, so they're like, maybe we'll search it again.
yeah.
And this time, no, this is what they did. They were like, well, we could search it again, and then Farshim was like, wait, I have a bomb, and so
yes, that's right.
Yeah, they have those I don't know, old-fashioned fantasy-style bombs, or or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's fantasy enough. You find them. They exist both in Zelda and Lord of the Rings, so they can exist in fantasy. And so I had to make a check to when you put the levers to neutral, it closed both the pit and the ceiling. And so he threw it, and they timed it and pulled the levers and trapped the bomb up in that little compartment up there. And then boom, it blows up, and they reopen it. Smoke and bits come raining down, and they look and they can see that it's blown off a piece of the wall up there. They throw a rope, they throw their grapple, they climb up there, and they discover, oh, there's a secret door there that we could have discovered, but instead we just blew it off its hinges.
Right now.
Yeah.
What's that?
I need to send John a text right now to get the sound effect to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, there have been 2 secret doors so far in this dungeon, and both of them we didn't solve by finding the secret door. We just applied generalized violence to the wall. and it's like, oh, hey, the wall caved in. There must have been a secret door here.
So is Otto now going to bash every wall?
That's a very good idea, actually, but we haven't got to that yet.
So Theophania takes the lead, and this little door leads to this crawl space, and they crawl in it for quite a way. They crawl in it for a short ways north, and then they know the direction because 2 people brought these orbs of direction. And then they crawl east for a while, and then they crawl north for a long time. Then they crawl east for a while, and then finally they come to this. They come to a dead end. But as they're Theophania is in the front, so she's investigating it, or before they've managed to bash it off its hinges, she notices that it easily opens, and it's basically a one-way door. You can't see it from the other side, but from this side you can see it quite easily. And it opens up, and it opens into this 10-foot by 10-foot room, and there's spikes all over the floor. And they look up, and the ceiling is about 30 feet up, and there's a mechanism at the top for clearly flipping down the ceiling. And so they quickly realize that they're inside of a pit trap.
I'm pretty sure that Otto bashed that one-way hatch anyway, because I remember you mentioning that it was now ruined and could open both ways.
Yeah, you might have. Maybe you did. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
So they get into this, the bottom of this.
Leave no door behind.
That's right.
So they
Doors are your enemy.
Yeah.
They grappling hook up to the trap mechanism, and Theophania spends some time. She doesn't do super well, so it takes her quite a while, like 20 minutes or something. But she finally gets half the trap door open, and they all climb out of the trap door and find themselves back in the hallway with the with the path on the floor and the whatever ending in the misty archway and the green devil face. So,
or is it a fake one of those?
and they
well,
just
is the door still smashed?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's in a trap. It was in a pit trap that was in that was on the path that they managed to avoid. Yep. And that's actually where we had to end the session. So they're back in the same hallway. They have essentially accomplished nothing. They're still in the opening hallway of the dungeon.
Yeah.
So far there have been four character deaths. John Claude's died twice, and Polmanix died once, and Theophania has died once as well. And so they've almost got through into the opening hallway. But yeah.
I'm very surprised that Otto hasn't died yet, because I've been just bludgeoning my way through everything, but it's been working.
Yeah.
I just kept smashing and it just kept working. So
I guess you didn't try smashing the misty archway, but
well, I think that I would just lose my RAM if I did that. Or you mean smash the archway itself?
Yeah, smash the archway.
Yeah. If we get sufficiently frustrated, I might start doing that. Just bring this mountain down around our ears. I'm gonna Samson this place.
It's been interesting running it though, because like not only do you need to have the mindset of like trying to be cruel to the players, because whatever, they'll respawn, but also just like they give you advice at the beginning, like, you know, normally like when players are struggling or like are missing something, you should give them a hint, but they're like, don't give them any hints, because the whole thing is about trying to find stuff. If they miss stuff, don't give them hints. So the closest I came to giving them a hint is mentioning that they could re-examine that. Being clear that Farshim rolled poorly when he examined the only exit to that room, but I haven't been giving them any other hints or suggestions or anything. So just kind of painful, because there's lots of things that are like, like, there are things that they've encountered and that they haven't encountered that are like, no one's ever gonna find that. No one's ever gonna think of that. But whatever. Though one of the characters for his legendary item chose a robe of eyes, so that like reveals hidden objects and a bunch of stuff. So
that'll be effective here. Yeah.
So there are some things that I'm like, no one's ever gonna find that. That I was like, actually, with the robe of eyes, they might find that.
Yeah.
So,
I had considered taking a ring of X-ray vision, but it didn't really fit my character very well. So.
Yeah, and I think like X-raying through like the walls and doors is probably going to be. There's a lot of things in that just say, yeah, there's no way to avoid this. There's no way to whatever. And so
I mean, the darts. The description for those darts is like armor doesn't help, nothing helps.
Yeah. So well, and I didn't even notice that, but I didn't notice that part. But it was like, or maybe you're probably reading the original one.
The original, yeah.
Yeah, which is similar. Like the thing in this one says, nothing can stop the darts from firing.
Right.
And so then when he covered it with ice, I was like, well, it's lame to be like, no, your thing just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it'll just break after a few rounds, right? Like you can't stop it permanently. You can stop it briefly. That seemed a reasonable compromise.
Yeah, in the original, it's like nothing can stop them from hitting their targets, and like, yeah, nothing can stop them from, like, magic doesn't work and armor doesn't work.
Yeah.
You could fill the room entirely with iron, and somehow they'll still burrow down through that.
I think it's just meant for like protection from missiles and like,
yeah,
you know, I'm wearing plate mail. Surely that does something. And it's like, nope, these darts are annoying. But I think you adjudicated it right, where like once you bring creativity into play, then You can
Yeah,
allow.
and I mean and it's different too. That it doesn't stop it forever. It just stops it for a while and gave them a chance to get through that one room. But then it doesn't really help them that much because there's 4 more rooms just the same. So
But we got through all of them though. So
Yeah.
We did.
yeah.
Mission
Yeah,
accomplished.
Mission accomplished. The darts failed. Haha.
All of the doors are dead.
Yes.